Commissioners meeting, March 10th, 2025. If everyone can join me in Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry for the delay. Just want to give notice that we had an executive session, talked about legal issues. At this time, I'd like public comment on any topic on the agenda. All right, seeing no one, the consent agenda, are there any items that the board or public would like to take off the consent agenda? All right, so do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving on. Okay, moving to the business agenda and Arbor Day proclamation. So for Arbor Day, whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, lower heating and cooling cost, moderate temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are renewable resources giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in Radnor Township increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas Radnor Township holds Arbor Day and all its arbor efforts in the highest regard as signified by the township's anticipated designation of Tree City, USA in its 33rd year in 2025. Therefore, Radnor Township Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim Friday, April 25th, 25 as Arbor Day in Radnor Township. And we commend this observance and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees, our woodlands year-round, and for the well-being of this and future generations. Thank you. So the next item, 3B, consideration of the Hamilton Trustees Settlement Agreement, and it's going to be for discussion.
Yeah, let me just provide a little bit of background, Commissioner Riley. The settlement agreement that's on the agenda is the same document and plan that was on the agenda 2 weeks ago. Since then, Commissioner Larkin and staff and myself have had 2 town hall meetings in the building with the affected residents last Thursday and last Tuesday over that plan and the settlement agreement. As a result of that, Mr. Lingo is here, who has an agreement of sale with the Hamilton estate, hopes to build on this site, and he's going to present the revised plan that has been discussed. He's been meeting with some of the neighbors, and he can go through that on the revised plan and the differences between what was looked at 2 weeks ago and tonight. So tonight, there's no action to be taken on this. This is just an explanation of the revised plan, and this would come back on the board's agenda in 2 weeks.
Thank you, John. Greg Lingo, I'm the owner of Rockwell Stratford LLC, who's the equitable owner of this property. We had some really productive meetings over the last couple of weeks with neighbors specifically, neighbors that were impacted along Grant Lane, and then also some of the other neighbors along Forest, and then the greater community as well that would be impacted by this community. So in our first draft of the settlement plan, we were addressing less traffic on Stratford Road by not having homes drive right onto Stratford. We also have this road now connecting to Eagle to limit the amount of folks that are traveling onto Stratford. But since 2 weeks ago's meeting, I think we made some really drastic and positive improvements to the plan. We ended up removing one of the homes along Stratford Ave here, and thereby doubling the distance between the homes on the street. We also agreed to request an 8-foot fence along the border here with the Grant Lane folks and the shooters here on Forest. We also agreed that we would put the stormwater management in up front so that they didn't have to wait for the entire community to be developed before reaping the benefits of controlling the stormwater. We agreed to double the density of the landscaping along the fence line there with Grant and Forest, and also to install that fencing and the landscape buffer at the onset of the project so that folks didn't have to look onto a construction site all along. It would already be buffered. So I think that combination of reducing it from, the plan that is being contested and appealed of 38 units of townhomes down to this 29-unit single-family plan, I think was really beneficial, and I thank Commissioner Larkin for arranging those meetings. Since then, we've had a lot of other meetings as well with the neighbors, and it's really been positive.
Does the board have any questions?
Just one of the other things, Greg, if you could point out, for the residents on Grant Avenue, I know some of the residents were concerned about the footprint of some of the houses. Could you just address?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up as well. One of the other big changes that we made since the last iteration was we swapped out the house styles to create greater distance, in some cases doubling the distance between the property line of the Grant Lane home neighbors and the future homes to be built there.
Is there any issue with the distance between the houses in the zoning code?
As part of the settlement plan, there is, these homes are slightly closer together than they would be. For instance, the Grant Lane homes in the same zoning districts are 24 feet apart. That's their foundations are 24 feet apart. They've since added over the years some things to make them a little bit closer. These homes will be 19 feet apart from one another.
Do you know what the requirement is?
The zoning code is 24.
It's 24, so it's 5 feet.
Correct.
Okay.
Questions?
All right, thank you.
So my suggestion is just a motion to table this and to bring it back in 2 weeks. There's no action on this tonight. So the residents, I know some of the residents are here, will probably want to come back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, if there's any residents here that would like to speak about this topic, they may. Come on up.
I'm Brian Curley at 136 Fairfield Lane in Wayne, Radnor resident, Radnor taxpayer. I've attended numerous meetings regarding this project, and I want to thank Commissioner Larkin and Solicitor Rice for holding these meetings to address neighbors' concerns regarding the settlement and to allow me to communicate my concerns. While the meeting did not satisfy all of my concerns about the settlement, it did allow me to see Mr. Lingo's plans and to hear what he had and what he wanted to accomplish with this project. What most impressed me about Mr. Lingo's presentation was his apparent willingness to address neighborhood concerns and to adjust sections of his plan to satisfy these concerns. While everyone in the neighborhood does not seem to be satisfied via emails, it's hard to satisfy all individual concerns. I believe it is a positive step in getting this project started and addressing issues regarding the Hamilton property. I support the settlement agreement specifically because Mr. Lingo has agreed to address stormwater issues first. However, I am pleading with Radnor Township not to make this your Pontius Pilate moment, where you agree to the settlement and wash your hands, indicating you're done with dealing with this issue after 5 years. The way I see it, this settlement is phase 1 of the development of the property. Phase 2 would be the Radnor Township's approval of the final plan. Phase 3 would be monitoring during the construction phase, and phase 4 would be follow-up and inspections to make sure any issues caused by this development will be addressed and fixed. Again, I plead with Radnor Township to do its duty to protect the public health, safety, and general welfare of the people, the homes in this neighborhood. Please do not fail this neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, so not seeing anyone else, we'll do ask for a motion to table this.
So moved.
All right, all in favor? Okay, next up, 3C Caucus, Final Land Development Plan 302 to 306 East Lancaster Avenue, Wawa. Demolish existing structures, consolidate 2 lots, and develop retail stores and retail gas sales.
Evening, Nick Canilia, representing the applicant. I'm not going to bore you with the long history. I will make a couple comments about it, though. It started 6 years ago. It was April of 2018 when the preliminary plan was submitted. I think everyone's familiar with the site. Currently, it's an automobile repair shop, a gasoline station on the one site. On the other site's a gas station and the car wash. It's being combined and merged, and it will have a retail store, the Wawa store, as well as gas. There was a number of nonconformities with the original plan. The uses were nonconforming. There was no stormwater management on the site. The setbacks were nonconforming. There was no buffer. There was like an open curb cut for the whole place. The preliminary plan was denied by the board in June of 2019. It was appealed to Common Pleas Court. Common Pleas Court ruled in favor of the property owner. The township and interveners appealed to Commonwealth Court. Commonwealth Court again ruled in favor of the interveners, or in favor of the owner, I should say. The township, the interveners, requested the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania for petition for review. Supreme Court denied that petition. Brought us back to Common Pleas Court. The gist of it is the preliminary plan was approved by the courts. Common Pleas Court referred it back to you people to consider it for final plan approval. Since the preliminary plan, there have been some changes to the plan with concern of neighbors' requests as well as a township request as well. So even though the preliminary plan was approved, the applicant agreed to some additional items. The applicant agreed to have this is the approved plan, and why don't we put up? Okay, the one item is the applicant agreed to, initially, a preliminary plan only had a fence partly on the property. They have now agreed to put a fence, and we'll show you some examples of the fence, because that seems to be an issue that has come under question. For the entire length of the property, there will be a fence. Planning Commission, as part of their recommendation for approval, requested that, as part of the recommendation for approval, that the applicant would use best efforts to apply to the zoning hearing board for a higher fence, as well as the enclosure of the trash enclosure, a higher fence for the trash enclosure. That was one of their conditions, the Planning Commission conditions of approval. They did recommend approval with several of the conditions. One of the other conditions where they requested a different type of tree go into the buffer area here, which also was acceptable by the applicant. There was some concern about lighting. The plan has now been revised. There is no spillover lighting onto the residential properties. Prior to this development, there was extensive spillover onto the residential properties behind the property itself. There was a comment about removing of a bench that was back here, which certainly we would agree to. The one major thing, there was concern about pedestrian safety accessing this site, and one of the neighbors brought up a major concern about that. So the applicant has installed a pedestrian sidewalk in this area. It will be a raised area so that oncoming traffic would be aware of the crosswalk here. It would also include extensive signage as well as additional buffer in these corners of the property to accentuate the fact that we have a pedestrian crosswalk right to the Wawa store. So someone would come up from the middle school, from St. Catherine's or wherever, come up and on the pedestrian sidewalk, come through the back of the property and then cross into the Wawa store instead of having to cross across the actual site and the gas pumps. Also, there is a pedestrian access up by Lancaster Avenue as well in this area. The loading area is up front. It is not in the back here. The loading area is up front. It would come in this way and exit this way. So come in here, exit this way, unload food, other items in this area right here. There was also a concern about the large tractor trailers entering the site. The agreement, the owner and Wawa's amenable to restricting turning movements coming out of this site. So there would be no left-hand turn by the large tractor trailers coming out of this site, which would direct it toward the neighborhood. The only way they could come out of this site is by coming up, making the right here and coming up onto Aberdeen and then Lancaster. Also, the only way to access, there'd be a restriction, and actually there's a three-way restriction. I misspoke there. There's only one, the only way in for large tractor trailers is from coming down Aberdeen and making the turn into the Wawa site, the left turn. All other turning movements at this intersection would be restricted regarding the large tractor trailers. The other items I mentioned was lighting and the lighting of the canopy. So there would be a shield on the canopy as far as lighting is concerned. So that would also be shielded from the residential property owners. The applicant has agreed to put in a traffic adaptive system that is probably, hopefully, all along almost all of Lancaster Avenue now. At this intersection, they've agreed to do that. They've agreed to apply for the PennDOT permits regarding it. And all the review letters are acceptable to the applicant as well. You know, I don't know if the board has any questions. As I said, this has been before this board numerous times. It's been before the neighbors. We met with the neighbors. We met with Kathy.
Sorry, who?
I just said we met with the neighbors and we met with you, so,
And I am.
yeah. So I just was
Commissioner.
commenting who we met
We're
with.
not friends, right? Okay.
Oh, Commissioner Agnew, all right. Sorry. You can
I-
call me
I do have a
Nick.
question.
I don't have any problem.
I don't
You can
care.
call me Nick.
I have a question. So I thought the agreement was the tractor trailers would be coming off of Lancaster Avenue,
They would be coming off of Lancaster, and the only other way.
not entering off of Aberdeen. In other words, they wouldn't make a right on Aberdeen and come in through.
Correct,
Right.
correct.
Nor would they be
They
exiting.
could make a left on the Aberdeen and come into this
No,
site.
no, I thought the agreement was they would not. They would only be
Exactly.
coming in through Lancaster
The
Avenue.
field, yeah, the WB, the large fuel deliveries. Go ahead, Pete, go ahead. You come up, Pete. Pete, you got to need a mic.
The WB-50s, the large tractor trailers that you were concerned with, will be accessing Lancaster Avenue.
Will be only entering through Lancaster and exiting through Lancaster. Is that correct? Okay.
They're going to be, they'd be exiting on the Lancaster too? Okay. Sorry.
It's okay. Does anybody else, I have, so there are 18 testing wells on the property, correct?
I'm not sure the total amount, but there's a significant amount of
Well, there's,
monitoring wells.
on Bowler's report, there's 18 testing wells. What are the results of the,
Currently, we have two different cases, one for the Sunoco property and one for the former BP property. The Sunoco property has, I think, clean, and I don't have the most up-to-date. So they're about to abandon that. And then the BP has a slight
who's
elevation.
they? Who are they?
The environmental consultants and the state, PennDOT, or, I'm sorry, PADEP, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection.
Are going to abandon the Sunoco one about the.
Correct. And we're about to shut down the water treatment system that's been operating on the Aberdeen side, and that's been basically taking care of all the groundwater from both properties. There's a slight elevation right now on the BP side, probably about this area, and we're about to install 2 more wells to do some, I think they call it vapor extraction, or basically suck the water out and try and knock it out.
And you have reports from, and have they been shared?
They're all public knowledge with the state. I'm sure we can get the consultant to share anything you need.
Because my understanding is the neighbors asked the consultant, and he was to ask you, and they'd never heard back.
Okay.
Can you share them, please?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
how about you send them to me and to Mr. Norsini in the
What
morning?
would you like to see?
The reports regarding the results of the testing,
So
those
we've been-
testing wells.
The most recent, because we've been treating on this site since for a very long time. So there's a lot of data. So if.
But
would it-
there's a report,
Most
right?
recent quarterly would do, or?
Mr. Norsini, what do you recommend?
Perhaps the last 3 months, so we get an idea.
They usually sample quarterly.
So the last 3 quarters, how's that?
Okay. You got it. And the good part about this project, just to add on to that, is that we'll be demolishing everything, right? So this has been a gas station since the 1950s, 40s. There's probably unknowns that we haven't even mapped underneath it. And by scraping this site, you pull out any structure, any unknown, any potential hot spots, and you can deal with them when the site's open. And then we put clean fill in, and it's hopefully better than it is now.
Do you know when you scrape, and so you're raising a lot of dust, what you'll be doing to make sure that dust doesn't basically go
control.
everywhere?
I'm sure we have notes in the construction.
Okay.
Dust control's a big part of it.
Will Yeager, Bowler Engineering. So all of that would be regulated by PADEP and the Erosion and Sedimentation Control Manual. And all those notes would be covered on the plan for during construction activities.
There will be a sign right on Aberdeen that says no left turn at your entrance exit on Aberdeen, is that correct?
Yes. On Aberdeen, there's a no truck sign at the exit, and there's also a no truck sign if you're coming northbound on Aberdeen.
So what's the problem with restricting all vehicles from not making a left-hand turn onto Aberdeen? So to prevent cars from going down the 200 block of Midland.
Well, if you're not, I would
Coming around
think
to
from a
Aberdeen.
traffic
Do
standpoint,
we
Ms.
restrict
Eng-
that now from the gas station? We don't.
No.
We don't. But the amount of traffic that will be increased will be over 500 cars a week. That'll be an increase in traffic.
Our traffic engineers here as well could probably address it, but I know that we were concerned that by doing that we would have a lot more traffic crossing either.
Trying to cross
back around
Lancaster.
Or coming back through the neighborhood this way, and we didn't want to add more traffic.
So can we have it that, as part of the developer's agreement, that we will say in 6 months, reevaluate whether or not there should be a no left turn for all vehicles out of Aberdeen. And 6 months
We
after
can't
that.
really agree to that. I mean, we have reports that,
I'm sorry, why can't you agree to it?
because we're not going to agree to
Well,
it.
that's different than you can agree
But,
to
and
it.
also, Kathy, I'm not sure that you speak for everybody. I don't want a no left turn out of there. Personally, I don't think that would benefit the community. I think it would make people go in left turn out of Lancaster, which would be dangerous.
The
So
only reason I'm saying it would
I
benefit the
wouldn't
community.
ask for that in the agreement anyway.
The reason I'm saying it would benefit, or may benefit the community is because the community brought it up to me. I didn't think it up
Yeah,
myself.
the only question I would have, as been mentioned, is that just going to have people make a right on Lancaster, come back down
might.
Midland Avenue?
Yeah, I don't know.
Quick question. You mentioned the truck. Could you just show me the path of how the truck could go in and then out the same egress?
We can add some clarity to that. So,
Sorry.
so there's a couple options here for turning movements, but vehicles could make the left into the site off of Lancaster. This would be for the fuel delivery. They would circle around the canopy, and then they could make that same movement and then make the left turn or right turn out. Same thing if they were to enter off of Aberdeen, they could make that same circular movement, end up back at Lancaster, make the left turn or right turn out. But the intention was to allow the left turn in, but restrict all three other movements at that intersection for truck traffic. For fueling.
Right, so the trucks aren't coming in on Aberdeen.
As it's shown now, they could make the left turn off of Aberdeen.
No, I'm talking about, all right.
Into the site, they couldn't exit the site onto Aberdeen.
Mr. Carackellian, I believe, just said that they would not be coming
So
in.
we can have Mike from Wawa talk to you about that too. There's multiple different types of delivery trucks. And
right, there's
what
like
we
the
had
bread trucks and all
restricted
that.
Before was the WB50, the large.
The big
tractor
ones, right.
trailers.
But I
Sure.
think, Pete, I think
Sorry.
they were going to be able to make this
fuel.
turn here,
The fuel,
not the WB.
not the WB50s. Yeah. I mean, we would love it if we could, but it was for fuel and regular deliveries, not
You have to,
the large WB50 tractor trailers.
would not be coming in off of Aberdeen.
Correct.
But the bread truck or whatever you're saying could be coming in off of
Yes.
Aberdeen. The fence, I know the neighbors asked for higher than 6 feet. What height are you thinking of going to the zoning?
I believe the planning commission, as one of their conditions, stated a 10-foot fence. And that was a condition of the approval, which the applicant has said if the plan is approved, that he would apply to the zoning hearing board and request that. Of course, it'd be subject to zoning hearing board approval.
Where would a 10-foot fence be? Not along Lancaster.
It would be
Into the
in front of the
neighborhood.
trees.
Yeah.
The neighbor's
It would be
backyard.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it follows basically my finger from property line to property line.
And then you had earlier mentioned that the loading, unloading is right at the top of the drawing at Lancaster.
Correct.
Is there any visual barrier to that so that those who are moving along Lancaster are not always seeing a delivery truck?
I don't think so. I guess part of the concern would be site distances, but again, I would have someone who's more of an
And how
expert than
often
me.
do trucks sit there throughout the day as they're loading and unloading? Like, how often would we all just be looking at trucks?
Mike Spiegel with Wawa. I'm a real estate project engineer. So our truck deliveries, obviously at various times of the day, it depends on what delivery is happening. We like to try to have a lot of our deliveries come in off-peak hours. Obviously, we're at this site, we're also restricted on the hours when we can make the deliveries. Most of our trucks that come in that are parked in the top part in our loading area through here, usually it's they park, they turn the engine off, so there's no lights on, there's no engines idling, and they're there. It varies during the course of the day of which delivery it is. I mean, usually for the most part, we try to as best as we can, kind of keep them towards the daytime hours or the evening hours. We do have some deliveries that come in early morning, especially our fresh channel deliveries, which is like our fresh foods, our donuts, items that we sell fresh to customers. We want to make sure they're in the store before our morning rush comes in. But they're there for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then they're gone. And it's not like you have another truck coming behind it. You're not going to see trucks sitting there all the time. I think when the discussions came in of where the delivery zone was going to be, because a typical site, usually the front of the store is not the delivery, but recognizing the concerns that the residents had here is why the truck is on the north side or towards Route 30, because then the building itself acts as another buffer for sound and anything else that they feel could come in. I mean, I think knowing between the fence, the height, the truck's not idling, I don't think sign would become an issue, but I know it was a concern of the residents when we were looking at this design.
Yeah, I would urge sort of some consideration about what the view from the rest of the public, not just the residents, see, sort of as we're coming and going and doing our business in downtown Wayne. So if there's some greenery or some sort of visual that you could kind of protect just looking at trucks on that property.
Yeah, that looks.
There are trees there. The landscaping does show.
We have the 2 mature trees that we're trying to protect as well, we will protect there.
And is that a wall or fence there too that you were just pointing at?
No, it's just bushes. You have the trees right here along this end. There's like 3 or so trees, and then there's some bushes down here with some a mulch bed down there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. No, this is caucus, so.
Did I see that you had elevations?
Canopy or the building? So we'll start with Wawa's standard. And then I will share. On the back of one of the boards.
Maybe back here.
Yeah, it's on one of these other boards.
Back there. Yep. There it is.
Alright, so that would be the facade of the building.
So I know that you just showed us the original and then this by way of, this is better, right? This is the upgraded model.
Stucco versus brick.
This very much looks to me like very slightly upgraded Wawa. I recognize the position that we are in legally, but I'm going to ask you guys to kind of go back, sharpen your pencils a little bit on the facing of this and do what you can. Please, dear God, do not rely on me to do it. I'm not a designer. I'm not going to try and be a designer from here on the dais, but if you guys have the capacity, I'm going to ask that you try and make it look a little bit nicer, and I think that you will get positive feedback as a result.
We still have to go to design review.
And again, also
yeah.
not a designer, but things like making that look a little bit more like a front of a building than a back
I
of
agree.
a building. So, not changing the
We've talked
design.
about that, yeah.
I appreciate it. I just think that the people walking and driving
Right.
are now looking at what looks
Yeah,
like
we
the back.
have discussed that, yes.
Thank you.
With regard to the delivery hours, what were the restrictions? There's restrictions.
Right, there's restrictions on rush hour for the large deliveries. I believe rush hour being 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the afternoon.
When you say the large deliveries, what do you mean?
I believe the WB50s, yeah, the tractor trailers.
But isn't there also some sort of restriction regarding like the bread truck, the donut truck, the whatever?
I think Mike just explained that regarding there's no restrictions on it and when the deliveries are. There is, basically, the trash is picked up in the afternoon or morning anyway, during normal business hours. I think if you've seen the Wawa in Wayne, that's when the trash truck is there.
Are those restrictions by way of deed restriction, agreement with the township? What's the mechanism?
As to that would be part of either the development agreement or part of this resolution regarding the restrictions. I believe it's in the letter, one of the engineer's letter. I think it's in Damon's letter on the restrictions for the large deliveries.
Do you also have drawings that show the green, the planting?
So, yeah, why don't you explain it? Is there a color?
Anything specific or just general
Do you
overview?
want to show the buffer?
Yeah, I think if you start with any buffering, anything that you are taking out and what you have to put in.
Sorry, did you say grading or?
Sorry, greenery. Yeah, the landscaping.
I thought you said grading.
Oh, sorry, that's why I was looking at that going, it's not going to tell me anything unless you walk me through it, but, sorry, greenery or,
Yeah, so I'll grab the
landscape.
rendering and I will grab the landscape plan. So the rendering probably does a better picture for you there. This is essentially all we can give. Maybe both here. So this landscape schedule on the side here basically represents all the proposed material on the project. The bulk of it's being placed on the back side of the property towards the residents to the rear. There is a solid row of green arborvitae that run the length of the property, and then it's infilled with some deciduous trees as well as shrubs and some lower cover growth.
Those arborvitae will be giant arborvitae.
Correct.
so all of the dedicated landscaping is to the back, and the front that we're seeing, those greens, are existing trees, or are you adding on Lancaster as well?
So this darker green are all additional trees. Actually, that pointer might get my arm out of the way. So these are all proposed trees. There are 2 existing mature trees out of this lighter shade that are remaining along the frontage. But everything else on the property is essentially proposed.
And just are those shadows from the original tree that are right,
These guys?
is that what that is?
Oh.
Is that just from like the,
Yeah, that's just an aerial image in the background
but
there.
that's what I'm looking, those dark spots really are
Yes.
shadows from the
Yes.
from the existing trees that you're saving?
Yes.
Got it.
Depends what time of day the aerial's
Yeah,
taken.
just gives an idea
Yeah.
about how tall they are for some of the people who are looking.
Yeah, if the sun was low in this picture, it can be sometimes misleading by the shadow, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will that be like sort of serving that function of blocking what people in the street are seeing when they're going home?
Correct.
Is anybody from staff want to add to this? Sorry.
I have nothing to add, Commissioner.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. All right, next, 3D caucus, preliminary final minor land development plan, 245 South Bryn Mawr Avenue, 4-unit townhouse to replace existing building.
Good evening. My name is Gina Gerber. I'm here on behalf of the applicant this evening. This is a new project, so we've got something that you all haven't seen before. So if you'll allow me the time, I'd like to walk you a little bit through the application and present the plan with our project engineer this evening, and then we'll walk through the waivers as well for this particular project. So this is a redevelopment of a property at 245 South Bryn Mawr Avenue. It's immediately adjacent to the Radwin Apartments, and abutting that is a 5-unit townhouse development, The Muse at Moore Avenue. This is a project that's in the R5 district. It is a 4-unit townhouse development, so relatively minor in terms of residential density here. The density that's proposed is in conformance with the zoning ordinance. There is an existing access road to the site off of South Bryn Mawr Avenue, which actually happens to be the only road that provides access to this particular property. The applicant is proposing to retain that access drive, but they are going to improve it. They are going to widen it in accordance with PennDOT standards. They are getting the appropriate PennDOT permits in order to do that, which we anticipate overall is going to improve the safety and the visibility coming to and from this particular site. We're also improving the existing stormwater management on the site, which currently has none. So you're going to see a new stormwater system on this property. It's going to benefit not just this property, but also the neighboring properties around here that may be getting stormwater runoff from what's currently there. If you're familiar with this site, it is developed with a, most recent use was a medical office building. It's a 2-story building. It also has 27 parking spaces. Now, generally speaking, what we see in terms of traffic generation from a medical office building versus a residential is going to be a serious decrease in the amount of cars that are coming and going from this site. So from a traffic perspective, you're going to see a benefit in terms of the amount of traffic generated by the use on the site. And the other big benefit with this particular project that I've noticed is the impervious coverage. Right now the site is non-compliant. It goes over the existing impervious coverage that is allowed in the district. This proposed plan is improving that by 11.1%. It's actually going to bring the site in compliance with the current requirements for the R5 district. So there's a number of benefits associated with this particular plan. You will see the aerial on the site that identifies where the property is. You'll see it outlined in a dark black there on the particular site. That's the existing conditions on the site. And, oh, here we go. So before we bring our project engineer, Chuck Dobson, up to walk you through the site a little bit, I wanted to introduce you to my client, who's also the developer. I think it's always a good idea for the commissioners in the township to meet those that are actually going to be doing business in the township. So if you'll allow us just a couple of minutes so that Mr. Mike Zappatelli can introduce himself to you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Zappatelli. I'm the builder and developer. I'm a second-generation builder. My father's been building for about 50 years now. My sister and I run a very small boutique, family-oriented business, and we particularly pick properties that are in great townships, certain school districts, and we try to keep it within the architectural style of the area. So we spend a lot of time with our architects, engineers, to make it fit within the community. It's not a cookie cutter project. And work with local families. I'm on boots on the ground every day. The clients deal directly with myself and my sister, so it's a very heartwarming, hands-on situation there. And we like to try to keep it within Radnor standards here to blend in with your community and not set itself out as an eyesore.
Thank you, Mr. Zappatelli. I'm going to ask Chuck Dobson, who is with Inland Design, to come up and walk you through the actual site plan for this project so you can understand what's happening on the ground.
Thank you, Gina. Good evening, commissioners. Chuck Dobson, Inland Design. Gina did a very nice job kind of going over the details, so I'll expound upon what she told you about the project. So context plan, you show we have an aerial context plan. The property itself is located right in the middle, and we have a 500-foot perimeter showing really all of the existing features that are in and around the proposed development. Moving quickly along to the existing conditions plan. As Gina indicated, we have a mixed-use medical office building. Takes access to South Bryn Mawr Avenue by a driveway that is actually substandard from PennDOT perspective. It's not wide enough. And there are 27 parking spaces. The existing impervious on the property is 45.4%, where 36% is actually permitted. And as Gina indicated, there is no stormwater management on the site. Relative to vegetation, there are a few trees and some shrubbery, but nothing of any significance. I do note that the project was in front of the Shade Tree Commission in the fall and did receive approval from that group. Moving over to the proposed condition, as Gina indicated, we have a 4-unit townhouse development, which is permitted by the R5 district and complies with the density requirements. We are going to maintain the location of the existing driveway and improve it to meet PennDOT standards, and that includes provisions of ADA ramps along the existing sidewalk, basically really just an improved driveway access that's going to meet all PennDOT requirements. There are some overflow parking spaces here, and the total parking requirement is a total of 8. That would be two spaces per unit, and the plan shows a total of 14 spaces. So we are overparked, and we do that because with townhouse communities, there's always the question about visitors and holidays and whatnot. Relative to the proposed improvements, we had the fortune of actually, this property is located in 2 watersheds, which bisects the property. As such, we actually have 2 stormwater management systems proposed. We have a rain garden BMP at the rear of the property, which will then operate and discharge into an infiltration facility near the front of the property. And again, since we had 2 different release requirements because of the watershed separation, we had to create two systems. So what we have is we have a reduction in impervious coverage, and we have the implementation of 2 stormwater BMPs to assist in the stormwater management, which we think is certainly a benefit overall. Relative to the landscaping, bear with me. Landscaping and lighting plan. We have really gone out of our way to augment the existing features relative to landscape improvements. Not only are we putting in street trees along South Bryn Mawr Avenue, we have additional trees and buffering, and I do note that we are saving a couple of existing trees along the western property line. Along the rear property line, again, more enhancements to the landscape buffering, and then we have, wherever the opportunity presented itself, we added additional plantings. That's it in a nutshell. I do note, and Gina did mention it, that we're seeking 3 waiver requests for this. Actually, 2 waivers and 1 partial waiver. They are identified on the first sheet of the plan set. The partial waiver request is from section 255.22B1K, and that basically indicates that the project needs to show every and all details of the existing features within 500 feet of the site. We find that the aerial context plan really does go a long way to doing that. However, there are certain elements relative to sanitary sewers, storm sewers, inlets, grates that are required to be shown, but in order to survey the location of those elements within 500 feet of the site would be quite an effort. The other 2 waivers we have are that in accordance with 255.27I5, no private driveway shall take access to an arterial or major collector street. So South Bryn Mawr Avenue is a major collector street. However, we have no other frontage. We cannot provide access to any other street simply because the property does not front on any other street. And the other waiver request was that 255.27I7, no common driveway shall provide access to more than 3 lots or 3 single-family dwellings. We requested this waiver out of an abundance of caution. Our initial opinion was that there is only 1 lot, and these are not, as defined in your zoning ordinance, single-family detached dwellings. So we didn't think it applied. However, discussion with the Planning Commission and some of your consultants, we felt it was probably prudent just to leave it on there and have the discussion with the board about that waiver request. So, Gina, do you have anything else?
I just wanted to add a little context to that last waiver. What is actually being proposed here is not a subdivision of the property into 4 lots. It is simply going to be a community association with a townhouse community. So we don't have 4 lots per se. We also don't, your townhouses also aren't necessarily single family as that term is defined. So as Chuck indicated, we don't think that last waiver is necessarily applicable, but to the extent that you all and your township consultants believe it is, we are asking for that waiver in order to build out this particular development. For context, as I mentioned in the beginning when I introduced this plan, immediately abutting this property is a 5-unit townhouse, the Muse at Moore Avenue, which is a 5-unit townhouse development with one access drive. And as far as I know, that particular development, that access drive is not posing any sort of issue at this point in time. It's not causing any detriment to this particular property. So just for context. And then in terms of the access from the collector road, obviously that's an existing condition. There's not really much that we can do to fix that in any capacity. It is the condition. We're doing what we can to make that safer and to widen that driveway to bring it up to PennDOT standards, but that's a condition that's going to continue with pretty much any development on this particular property. So,
Can I ask you about the rain garden? So sometimes there's chronic problems with rain gardens and that people aren't cleaning them out. So
Yes.
What's your plan for that?
Well, all the stormwater BMPs have to have an operation and maintenance agreement. We note that there will be an association for this property, and it would be our expectation that a management company would be responsible for making sure that the rain garden is maintained according to the requirements of the township and the PA BMP manual. But I do want to say that the rain garden actually doesn't have a positive outflow directly off-site. It actually goes to another facility, so it's actually working in tandem with a second facility. But to your point about rain gardens, I'm not a big fan either. We only use them where the soil conditions require us to use them, and in this case, the soil conditions in this location required us to use one.
So they'll be cleaned out
Yes,
regularly or whatever?
that's correct.
I understand probably the biggest sticking point you're looking at is that entrance. So you've said a couple of times, I agree there. I mean, there's no other way to get to this land. It's otherwise locked. So what is it currently? You've touched on it a little bit, but if you can expand on what is the current condition and how you said you're bringing it up to PennDOT standards. What does that mean? What's the difference?
So that's an excellent question. Currently, the driveway that comes off of South Bryn Mawr Avenue is 16.7 feet wide, which is not, it's a little bit too wide for a single lane and not wide enough for a two-way access. So I know it's an existing condition, and absent land development plans prior to this application, it's one of those things that just goes unchanged for a long time. What we're doing is we've already submitted PennDOT plans to PennDOT, and we've had 2 revisions submitted, and we're down to a small handful of comments. So in general, what we're going to do is we're going to have curb radius returns from the sidewalk. We're going to provide ADA ramps where currently none exist. The throat width of the driveway will be 28 feet for a distance of about 25 feet from the edge of the cartway, and it's going to neck down to 24 feet. PennDOT feels that 28-foot throat width is what's necessary just to allow the traveling public to make their moves without impacting pedestrians or curbs or any other elements that might be in there. So we are widening it and improving the ADA access across the entrance as it is.
And this might be a question for Mr. Norsini, but Mr. Norsini, we're getting a crosswalk on Bryn Mawr Avenue because of the assisted living facility on the Brock, on the Jewish Federation campus. Where is that crosswalk in reference to this property?
So I don't have
Sorry.
those plans. I'm going to say it's going to be south of there. It's more closer to the apartments, but I honestly don't recall the exact location.
Yeah, so Radwood Apartments are here, and I don't know where the proposed crosswalk is either. There's the entrance to the Hebrew Academy, and I note that there's sidewalk improvements that are remain, which hopefully will provide pedestrian access to the train station nearby.
Yeah, so there's a development going on across the street from this one that has
Understood.
committed to doing that crosswalk. I was just wondering, how this driveway is going to impact pedestrians moving across the street rather than just the cars going up and down and a pedestrian on the sidewalk. So I would just put that to you. It might be good to connect with Mr. Norsini, understand the distance that we might be talking about between that proposed crosswalk, just so that, it might actually be a safety measure that improves your property.
Sure, happy to do that, absolutely.
I'm the commissioner over here, just so you know.
I understand.
You said 27 parking spaces are there currently.
That's
A new
correct.
spot, you said a number, but I didn't.
I'm sorry?
What number for the new one?
So 8 are required, and we're showing a total of 14.
Okay.
And, are you done? Sorry. The size of each townhome, how many bedrooms, and sort of, what size? And then if you can, at this stage, estimate what, the purchase price you would maybe be asking.
We're over 3,000 square feet and 4 beds, 4 baths. The purchase price I can't estimate, but you're going to be over $1 million.
So these are really, you could have a large family in these homes. Okay.
Mr. Norsini, did you have any other questions or comments?
I do not, Commissioner Riley.
Okay, good. Great. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, 3E, Resolution 2025-34, Preliminary Land Development Plan Approval, 1300 Eagle Road, Eastern University. Gymnasium and Learning Center expansions and related driveway and parking modifications.
Evening, Nick Cornelia. We'll just put the plan up. We've reviewed the resolution, it's acceptable. The engineer letters are acceptable as well.
What happened to the fence that we were talking about last time?
Trevor, do you want to?
Good evening, Trevor Jackson, Eastern University. Been corresponding with the neighbor, and we have addressed most of their concerns at this point in time. We've also invited them to a neighbor meeting we're having on Wednesday night this week, but they had concerns about some of the equipment we had sitting in the parking lot that backed up to their property. We had some pallets of salt and stone and other miscellaneous materials. We had a couple Kubotas and little mini tractors sitting there as well. We have since relocated all that material. There is one dumpster that is there and is going to remain there. We're going to put up a fence right alongside that dumpster to block the vision of that dumpster from their property.
Why not just put up the fence that they want along their property?
That fence, it's a standalone fence. It's kind of.
How much would it cost to replace the fence?
I think we estimated that to be around $5,000. We could do that. Obviously, we could do that, but it's one of those things aesthetically that no other neighbor has in that vicinity. And we haven't, and to be honest, we haven't ruled it out. And that's why we invited them to the meeting to talk through it further.
Yeah, there was a fence there previously, so whoever made the aesthetic decision to put it there in the first place, that did not seem to bother them. The resident is complaining and asking, could you put the fence back that she took down or that was in disrepair? If it's $5,000 and you're going to put up a fence in order to block the dumpster anyway, give them their fence.
Happy to consider that. We're just trying to be consistent with the fencing we've done throughout the campus with some of our other dumpsters and things of that nature.
I understand. I don't think that your position is illegitimate. I don't think that your position is outrageous. There's a resident who has a fence that has fallen down and they want the fence replaced and it's on your side. So now you guys are here asking for something from the board. This is the time to make the ask. Fix their fence, please.
Understood.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public on this issue?
So just one, the fence, if that's going to be added to this resolution?
No.
Okay, just
checking. I'm just making noise right now.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right, can I have a motion
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 3F, Resolution 2025-36, authorizing the bid award to Atlantic Tactical, Inc. in the amount of $63,558 for the replacement of 55 Sig Sauer pistols for the use by Radnor Township Police Department, as budgeted in the 2025 capital budget, and authorizing destruction of the retired pistols except for officers who wish to pay and have their assigned duty pistols legally transferred to them for personal ownership.
Can we split that in half, the motion, so that we excise out the sale to the officers of their duty pistols? Just have it two separate motions. One to buy them and decommission the used ones, and secondly, to sell.
Can you say more about?
Sure, why?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I just don't think we should be in the business of selling firearms, no matter to whom. I fully trust that the police officers would be safe with them and care for them, but in a proper manner. But I just think as a township we shouldn't be selling them to anybody. It doesn't matter to whom.
So, I guess there's a motion. Do you want to entertain the motion to split this, and then we'll have a discussion, or?
Yeah, is there a second to the motion to split it?
Okay. I guess maybe this is a question to you, Chief, is if you can talk about historically how you purchase and get rid of guns and what the process is. And I have also never seen it in front of me to sell it to an officer. I know that we've kind of anyway, if you could answer those questions for us.
Well, I'll lead in, and then Chris, you can help fill in any blanks that I missed. The original, historically, when the township has purchased the replacement pistols for the police department, there was never a discussion about destruction. So this whole talk about destruction of the pistols is new with this round of replacement. In the past, the retired pistols were all used as trade-in to the authorized dealer, and at that time, officers would then be able to go and purchase their pistol back from that the dealer. So there's a long history of a handful of our officers who have, every time the township has replaced the pistols, have gone back and purchased them. So they have a running inventory of all the pistols that they've had throughout their career with the township. So it has more sentimental value than it does any kind of shooting value. So in the initial discussions about the replacement that were part of this year's plan, the discussion was, well, let's authorize them for destruction. A handful of those officers came forward and said, well, okay, could we have the option of buying our service pistol back as they've always done? So that's kind of how we got here today. Is that a pretty accurate summation? I mean, that's how I understood it when we put the legislation together to bring in front of you. So is that accurate?
Yes, and Commissioners, as he said, the history, but one of the things just for the community watching, we never do this unless there's a need for a new weapon replacement, and our weapons last between 5 to 8 years, give or take. So I do want the community to know that this isn't just to get the officers weapons. This is because it is time to upgrade our weapons because we qualify at least 2 times a year, if not more, with those weapons where there's several rounds shot through that. That's why Sergeant Gluck is here, one of our firearms instructor, to explain the new value and why we're going to the new platform, if you will. On the back end of this is the weapons. A couple of years back, there was no issue with this type of thing. The township did the trade-in value, as Mr. White, I don't want to repeat it, but trade-in value, and then the officers dealt with the firearms dealer who won the bid for the new guns. And that changes because it's a competitive bidding system, so it changes each year. It is a tradition and something that's important to the police officers. I myself will purchase this weapon to keep a chronological collection of what I've done here and trained with and used in the field. So that is the request before you. But again, highlighting to the community that we are purchasing new weapons because there is a need, and Sergeant Gluck can talk about the performance and the new levels of that, the first part of the resolution.
So I guess I'm not, oh.
So, go ahead. Chief, I'm going to ask you, so did you just say that you would sell them back to the dealer as opposed to decommissioning? Because this is decommissioning.
Yeah, so prior to this transaction and all of this, the years past when we have swapped out the inventory of the weapons, they were traded in to offset the cost of the replacement pistols. Right. The discussion of destruction, I'm having trouble getting those 2 words out, is new to this round of replacement.
Purely out of interest, what prompted the change?
Discussions with various commissioners about what we should do with the weapons.
But there used to be some sort of history for decommissioning. I only say this because I was at one commissioner's meeting a decade and a half ago, and that's what happened. They were decommissioned.
Yeah, those were the rifles, I believe.
Those are the
They were-
long guns.
Automatic.
They were big guns.
Yeah, the automatic rifles. Yeah, and those, the handful of those. First of all, I don't think they were replaced in their entirety, and yes, the ones that were no longer used were destroyed.
So maybe it would be interesting to hear about what the upgrade is from you, Sergeant.
Sergeant Gluck's going to walk up, and we do have just 4 brief slides that just give a quick history for the commissioners and the community to understand why we're in this situation, because I think it's very important to stay focused on that as we go forward, and I will turn it over to Sergeant Gluck.
Good evening. Sergeant Chris Gluck, Radnor Police Department, 18 years of service. I'm a firearms instructor and in charge of emergency management and the investigations unit. Just a brief history of how we do things here with the firearms over the years. When I came in 2007, there was already the Beretta 96D 40 caliber handgun. We then did testing and moved on to Sig Sauer, which has been a solid company for us over the years. We exchanged those in 2011 and 2016 at no cost because they discontinued the one model. And now we are at the Sig Sauer P320. It's a 9mm weapon. The bullet is slightly less expensive, but actually a little bit more accurate, so we moved to that. That was in 2018, and we are currently in 7 years of service for these firearms. The lifespan generally runs from 5 years to 8 years. Due to training, firearms are used, numerous rounds are passed through them, thousands, which is also increased for our SWAT members. They do monthly trainings with their firearms. Our armorers, who are certified by Sig Sauer and work here at our department, have seen increase in maintenance, internal springs, and wear on the firearm itself. So as per the time span, we're looking to replace these handguns to make sure that we have functioning weapons within the field for everyone's safety. The enhancements that are going to come with the new version of the firearm, if you look to the top left, that's called an iron sight. These are small dots that glow at night. You have to get a quick sight picture as fast as you can. This is a very basic sight that we would use to fire our weapons safely to make sure we are hitting our target, nothing beyond. And to your right, the right of that arrow, top right, is what's called a reflex sight or a red dot. This provides a better sight picture, which is quickly collected. It provides better target requisition, and we are quickly able to ascertain where the bullet needs to go, and with that red dot is much more accurate in a quick manner. Bottom left corner, at this moment, our officers do not have flashlights on their handguns. Flashlights are held with the support hand, meaning you have to fire your handgun with one hand, which is doable but not as accurate because you're firing with one hand. You don't have the potential grip necessary with two hands. It would make for a more accurate shot. This firearm will have a flashlight mounted to the bottom of it, so officers have the ability to hold the weapon with two hands for much more accurate shots and safety purposes. And just to note, Officer Down Memorial Page through 2023, 2024, and 2025, officers have been killed in the line of duty, and for each one in 23, 49 were due to gunfire, 52 were in 2024, and in 2025, this year alone, we've already had 9 officers pass due to gunfire while in the line of duty. Our purpose is to make sure that officers have the ability to protect themselves, protect the 34,000 members of our community and those who pass through in 13.9 square miles. We want to make sure that we are taking care of everyone to the best of our ability and keeping everyone safe. So that's our purpose. If you had a question about the transfer, I'd be happy to answer that as well. I have no issue explaining where that would go.
And Commissioners, just one point that we did, this is the second phase. We did try our accuracy utilizing our long guns has been dramatically increased with the use of the red dot. So this philosophy will carry on to the handguns. Obviously, we haven't done it, so I think it's very important to stress that we saw very positive results. We did it with a controlled test of our long guns, and now we're moving that platform to our handguns to deliver the best accuracy should you have to use it. A point of note, if you see our officers and if this is approved, they still will have a flashlight on their belt because we won't need that unless it is a life or death situation. So if you were in, let's say, a proposed Wawa and you were seeing an officer somewhere, you would see a flashlight outside of their belt, just so you're aware. We would carry dual items on that just for proficiency and use, so you would never have to have your handgun out unless it was a life or death situation.
I would like to echo the chief with that. We do have a flashlight for purposes other than pulling our firearms, so we want to make sure everyone's safe.
Yeah.
So I guess I would ask you a little bit about what does the transfer look like? How would it be different this year since we're not selling everything and only those who are interested? So do you have an internal process where you're going to find out the interest of the officers to keep their guns, and then how does one transfer a gun from service to personal use or
Sure.
personal ownership?
In years past, our officers would show their interest before we actually made the transfer itself. There are persons known as federal firearms license holders. They are approved by the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. They go through a lengthy process. They are approved, and then they are issued the FFL, Federal Firearms License. We have persons who we have dealt with in the past, and we would continue that, obviously. The officer would have to complete a ATF firearms transaction record, which is Form 4473. With that person who's going to be our FFL, the officer will sit down, review the information about the weapon itself, to provide their ID, a electronic background check is completed, and then the officer will have to wait a few minutes until we get all the answers or all answers to the questions on the list. They'll ask you if you have ever been charged with a crime, a felony, or a misdemeanor. Same thing as if you were to go into a gun store today and purchase a firearm, you would fill out that same information. The officer would then be charged a processing fee, which, just as an estimate during this time period, we've done it years ago, but now it's about $40 to $45 each transaction. The officer would only have the option of purchasing transacting their own assigned firearm. So every year when we do qualifications, everybody's firearm is checked to make sure the serial number matches is what they're assigned to. So those officers will receive that weapon only. We're not trading in for a better one or switching it out. It's been assigned to you, that's what you are interested in, and that's what you'll be transferred to. A receipt from the form, as well as a receipt of sale will be issued to the officer. We'll retain one here, obviously, for purposes of, documentation. Does you have any question about that before I move to the next one?
I do, just, so are you only charging officers the transaction fee of $45, or are they buying the gun?
My understanding is it would be the transaction fee, as the weapons have no value because they're being destroyed per request. Yes, ma'am.
I think you said that the problem with the ones you have now is that their maintenance, they require a lot of maintenance, or they're breaking down or something like that? Was that?
As we move through the lifespan of a firearm, the internal operations, springs, and wear on the actual slides themselves do start to wear down, and we have to replace those parts. We do that with our certified armorers, who are officers here that are trained by the actual company, Sig Sauer. Parts are from Sig Sauer, so we're getting quality parts from the company. But over time, the gun will wear.
So when was the last time that was done? Is it done like all across the board? They do them all across the board?
Guns are always checked and inspected whenever we do qualifications to make sure everybody's safe. We also clean those firearms after our shooting range to make sure they're running to the best of their ability. They are inspected by our armorers, and the armorers check to see if anything needs to be changed out. As time goes on, and if we notice any issues, they will be changed out at that time. We don't do a mass changing unless necessary. In terms of internal parts, I apologize, to make sure it's very clear.
I just want to make sure it's not like, well, this one's not working too well, so we'll sell it to them. That's not the deal.
No. We make sure everything is functioning correctly. If they are interested in making the transaction, then they do so. And just so you're aware that it's more of a tradition kind of thing. I purchased my first firearm, which was that Beretta, when I first got here and when we transferred it out. It's more of a nostalgic kind of thing.
In previous replacements, what average trade-in value of a pistol?
Depends on what the pistol was.
It depends on the make and model and the value and what's going on. So Beretta handguns and Sig Sauers are more of a, this gets a little personal, like what kind of car is better than another car. But we could receive 15 to 25,000, I am rounding numbers, when we sell our fleet of weapons. So that's the ballpark. After that usage, they know that police weapons are fired, as the sergeant said, a couple thousand times through their lifespan. So that is an effect on the value of them. But in reference to this, total destruction is approximately $15,000 that we would have received in a trade-in scenario for the township.
And is there a cost to destroy the weapons?
Actually, no, sir. I can answer that. When we have weapons that are turned into us here at the police department, whether a family member does not want it any longer, someone's passed, or it's part of a crime of some sort and it's okay to be destroyed. Just a few months ago, we go to a place called Fairmount Foundry in Hamburg, PA, I apologize. It's free of charge. We take the weapons there. We load them onto a pallet. We follow the forklift to the furnace. We put it into a bucket. It's very large. It goes up a conveyor belt. It's dropped in the furnace and turns into molten lava. The lava comes out the other end. They use it for castings, for traffic signals, and other metal parts. So it goes towards something else. It's free of charge. It's also used by the ATF. They drive several trucks at a time up from Washington, D.C., and they actually melt them there. So we do have a plan in place to handle that, no different than we would evidence.
And if you traded the weapons in, what would the old weapons be used for?
I'm sorry, the old weapons?
So the weapons you're trading in, the old pistols?
During the last session of doing it?
Yeah, so if you're trading them in and not destroying them, what would they be used for?
They would be used to go towards a trade-in value for us to get money to go towards new pistols, but at the same time, it goes towards that person who purchased them and sold us the new guns. So they do is what they necessary.
What are those old pistols being used for?
They are probably resold, sir.
Sold.
Now, if there was some sort of stamping on it that said it was required by law enforcement only, then that would just go to another law enforcement agency. That doesn't happen very often, so.
Okay.
And of the, so what, they're 55, so that's a couple more than we have people in the department, right?
Yes, ma'am. We always have a backup just in case one goes down, so an officer has the ability to carry and continue his duties.
Your just estimate, I'm sure you haven't polled everybody yet, but how many of the officers do you think are going to want to keep their guns?
I honestly couldn't tell you a number out of 50, but I mean, probably like 10.
Oh, because you're talking about it's very nostalgic, and the chief has his. And
Sure, there's
so do
certain
you think
people
that
that
most
are
of our
very into
officers
that.
will want to keep theirs for that reason, or?
I can't give you a number exact because I haven't polled anyone yet, but at the same time, I don't see from previous events all 50 being given to the officers. It's more so certain people that have nostalgic purposes.
But it sounds like the last time they would have to go and purchase it. Now we're sort of giving it to them for the transaction fee, so it might
Yes.
be more of them staying in.
And that was due to the trade-in value. So that was the only reason behind that. If there's no value behind it and it's not coming back to the township, that was the purpose for just doing a transaction.
And Commissioners, just importantly, we did not do a survey because we weren't authorized to do anything. So we didn't want that information to get out, officers to be disappointed, or have somebody think that we're ahead of where the board or the manager wants us to be. So that is why we have not done a survey, because we didn't have the authority to do so.
Yeah, so I'm not in favor of destroying the weapons. I mean, there's a trade-in value. I'd rather see us have the trade-in value, and then in addition to that, be able to sell those weapons if the officers want to keep their current pistol. I mean, destroying them, my guess is you're going to be giving 50 away anyway. So you might as well reap the benefits from it.
All right. I know Maggie talked to some local townships, and they melt them down. And I remember this past summer seeing on the news, and it ended up a township that had sold theirs, not sold theirs, but used theirs. It went to an authorized person, but there's one gun eventually went to 8 other owners, and the 8th owner killed somebody with the gun, and they could track it back from the serial number back to the township that it came from. And so it was in the news, and so when it came up that, what do we do with our guns, this is what the history of it came. And I can understand officers wanting them. I don't think all 50 are going to want them. Even for that. Yeah.
So it might just be kind of an emotional response, but the idea of having guns that have been used to that extent by an officer recirculating into, the public space of gun purchases makes me a little uncomfortable. So I'm not a gun person, so I don't know about kind of wear and tear and how, when a gun becomes unsafe, not by a user, but by its own, just the gun itself not being safe. So I guess hearing everything that you've put out, I would be in favor of both aspects of this. So whether it's a split vote or not, I'm probably going to vote yes on both.
Ditto.
Well, you know where I stand. Hold on.
Yeah, there was a,
Well, we have a motion to split it and a second to split it.
All right.
on that.
So we have to vote separately, right?
Yes, so a motion to split it. All in favor for that?
Aye.
All right, so I got 2 for that. Okay. All right, so then,
That did not pass.
yeah,
No, it's-
did not pass. We'll go back to the original 3F resolution, 2025-36.
I would vote yes.
To split. Going back again. Now we have to splitting it 3 to 5.
3 to 2.
Right, 3 to 2, thank you.
3
3 out of 5, sorry. All right, so we're going to split it.
Yes.
Split it. All right, so,
Do you want it resolution 36A and B?
do I?
Who doesn't?
How do we do this? 36A is the first part of the sentence?
Well, I think
John Rice.
you approve the resolution, except for the part that has to do with
Selling
permitting-
back?
permitting the officers to,
I don't think that's going to be the outcome. I think we're going to vote on, I think we're going to get to the same place as we were going to if this were all one ordinance. So I think we're going to have to vote twice.
Right, I think the
Right.
second piece still needs to be voted on. We're not just
Yeah.
removing the option
Right.
to provide the officers the opportunity to take the gun. We just wanted to vote yes to sell guns, yes or no to sell the gun. I mean, yes or no to buy the new guns, and yes or no to whether or not the officers
Right.
can take advantage of the, so it needs to be two different votes.
yes.
Well, I think that, isn't it to buy, so A would be buy and decommission, and then B would be those not decommit, the ones that the officers want to purchase would not be decommissioned,
That'd still be the same.
Yes,
right?
but I think that's a better way to state it. Right, because now there's the destruction. Yes. Yeah.
That's what decommissioning is.
Right.
So,
Purchase guns and decommission the old ones.
in one vote.
That's one.
Second vote is sell back the others to the officers.
Well,
So maybe not decommission, but destruction.
It's the way you decommission.
Right, so destruction. So it would be purchase new and destroy old. And the second is any officer who wants to take a gun before it's destroyed.
All right, no,
Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, it makes sense, but, you know, for the record, just so no one's confused, I'm fully supportive of purchasing the new guns. I'm opposed to destroying the guns.
Okay, so then,
Just so that.
then you should make a motion for
For
a
a
third.
third.
No, I mean, let's just do the two. I mean, it's going to end up, the votes are going to be the same. I just wanted on the record that my opposition is going to be to the destruction of the weapons and not getting the fair market value for those.
But with that, then you'll vote against the first resolution.
I will vote against it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
All right.
ready and fire.
Did anybody jot that down?
Ready?
Can I just make a,
Yep.
try to get some clarity?
We were right there.
Okay,
like wordsmiths.
go ahead. I can't hear what you're saying, but go ahead.
You got it?
No, I don't.
Okay.
You got it.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2025-36 to the extent of authorizing the bid to award Atlantic Tactical, Inc. For replacement of 55 six-hour duty pistols and to destroy the current pistols.
Seconded.
All in favor? All in favor?
Well, you need.
What?
You need to ask for public participation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, public comment?
This is the most confusing one I've
Yes or
ever.
no?
Okay, so
What? Seeing none,
all in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
And I will make a motion to allow officers who are desirous of doing so to purchase back one of the weapons previously slated for destruction for the price of the transfer fee only.
Second. Comment?
Public comment? No public comment.
Just one little comment on that is just, and this, I don't think we have to amend the motion, but just to make sure that we're, only the pistol that was assigned to that officer.
Yes, sir.
That's the only weapon they are eligible to buy or pay the fee for to get back.
Amend my motion to one per customer.
And very specific duty pistol per officer. Okay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 4-1, passes. All right, moving on. 3G, Resolution 2025-33, authorizing a replacement of the HVAC cooling tower at the Township Building for the amount of $159,900 to be funded from the 2024 Facilities Improvement General Obligation Bond. Mr. White?
Yeah, I'm going to let Mr. Tate lead us in on this one.
What are you going to do with the old tower? I'm kidding. For the price of the transfer fee only, yes.
The old cooling tower? You have to disassemble and remove it first. That's the challenge. So before you tonight is authorization for, this will be the first of many resolutions coming before you this year for improvements and upgrades in our HVAC system, roofing, solar panels, all part of our facility improvement bond and items that we have discussed over the past several years and incorporated into the 2025 budget. In a moment, I'll just give you a couple of quick pictures of what we're looking at that needs to be replaced. The cooling tower was originally installed in 2006. It's okay. So it's the original component of the building. It's nearing its end of life. It's, could be anywhere from 15 to 20 years. The unit itself, it runs, so here we go. This is the unit which is just outside our building in front of the cell tower, down at the end of the building in this, sorry, I'm pointing in that direction. As you can see on the lower level, some of the shaded, that little area where the grills are, that's where the corrosion and sedimentation has been building up. That's what you can see from the outside. On the inside and down below, there's an annual maintenance that has been done to clear that out, clear out the corrosion and the buildup. Over time, it breaks down and it impacts the efficiency and operation of this unit. This unit supports both the air conditioning and the heating. It's essentially a water heat pump. This powers the heat pump loop that goes throughout the entire building. So it runs predominantly spring, summer, and fall, but also in the wintertime. So just like tonight when the heat kicked on or when the air conditioner kicked on, it's running to circulate the water to cool the building. Go ahead, Ian. That's just a little closer shot of the same unit. Go next one. So this is what you can see from the outside. It's pretty corroded, and the inside is, which we cannot see, the same impact that's incurring on the interior part of the parts in the motor. So this is the need for the replacement. And there's one more. I think it's just the same. Okay. So replacing it now will give us an opportunity that's about a 5 to 10 week lead time. By ordering it now, we'll have the opportunity to prepare and plan for a replacement when it's most convenient, limited downtime. We'll also involve bringing in a crane,
heavy lift to remove the old one, place the new one on the pad. So it's better that we can plan these events rather than respond to an emergency, which would potentially impact the operation of the building overall, since it supports the entire building. And again, this is part of the budget, part of the capital plan for 2025, and funded out of the facility improvement bond just recently issued.
Okay, any questions? No? Seeing none. So we're going to need a vote for that. Motion?
So moved?
Second. Public comment? All in favor? Aye. And it passes, all right. Reports of board liaisons. Anyone? No? Okay. New business, old business, public participation.
So moved.
Motion for adjournment. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.